Hello, welcome everybody. In this case, for me from New Zealand and on behalf of Daniel from Australia. He is not here yet. He will arrive in the last responsible moment, true Kanban fashion, because he's got a static session just before this. Really glad to have you all here, especially in December as we are all heading into the summer break. We were going to have actually our year-end event in just last week, but then Marcio came across and asked, well, you know, I've got this really cool call, and we saw the slides and said, well, I think we can squeeze this in. So thanks for coming over for December. This is definitely the last event this year before we take off again in February. And I will actually be down in Dunedin in January, and who wants to see me in person, who's down there, feel free to join me. I've put up a meetup event there. But other than that, virtually we'll see each other again in February. And so Marcio has been an accredited Kanban trainer for a long time in Australia. So he's a real, Kanban legend. He started in 2011, I think he told me. Yeah. And so has been pioneering Kanban over there in Australia. Is not a trainer now anymore, but still, I think once you're Kanbanized, you never really stop. So really looking forward to this talk. And over to you, Marcio.
Thanks, Yuka. So, hey everyone, thanks for making the time to join this conversation today. So I think what we're going to discuss today is a bit about like the challenges of visualizing and using fitness criteria at scale. So let's see how we go. And to kick off the conversation, I wanted to bring us back to the basics. So for those more experienced in Kanban practitioners, you'll be familiar with the static method, which we use to introduce Kanban to new services. And static stands for systems thinking approach to implementing Kanban. And it is made out of the following steps. So first, you identify services, then you understand what makes the service fit for purpose for the customer. You understand the source of dissatisfaction, you analyze demand, you analyze capability, you model workflow, you discover class of service, and design the Kanban system, and then you socialize and negotiate the implementation. So if you're not familiar with these and you're keen to learn, you can learn more with Daniel, with Silka in one of the trainings. Also, you can search for a very good blog that Amanda Varela published like a couple years ago. That was a very good blog. But today, I want to focus in two steps here mainly. So the first one is like identifying services. I want to talk more about that. So during this presentation, I will be using the terminology services and value streams interchangeably, right? So when I say value stream, feel free to hear services if that sounds more familiar or more comfortable to you, yeah? So I want to talk about that, and I want to talk about the first step, step one of static, which is about understanding what makes service fit for purpose. And in that first step is considered like a more advanced topic and is usually skipped during more novice implementations. So usually people go like, what is services about? What do you guys do? And then jump straight to source of dissatisfaction and so on. So I think the step one is really about exploring the criteria. Eitan, is that your keyboard or is that someone else's keyboard that's typing? So if you're typing, please put yourself on mute. So the first step is really about exploring the criteria that defines customer satisfaction with service delivery, right? So that is usually related to things like lead time, quality, predictability, cost, safety, and etc., right? So when you define those different criteria together, they are known as fitness criteria. And we call them that because they are what determines what the customer is used to evaluate whether your service delivery is acceptable or fit for purpose, right? So every time we identify a fitness criterion in the singular, you would need to usually understand like what are the thresholds for that. So if your customer cares about time to market or lead time, so what is the threshold, you know, from which your service would be considered to be good enough or would be considered to be satisfactory? So every time we have like a criterion, we would understand what is the threshold in which below you are considered to not be fit and above you are considered to be fit. And then together those metrics usually become like the key performance indicators, the KPIs of that value stream or that service, right? And that's what is used to align expectations with customers, stakeholders, what is the service level expectation, and etc. But also they inform the continuous improvement. They help drive improvements and evolutionary change. So if you know what success look like, what is the threshold? My customer cares about lead time. For, let's say, new features, the threshold is 30 days or less. Where we are in that, where we are with our service level, and then whether we need to improve or not. So that informs that as well. So today the conversation will be really about this first step. How can we automate that? How can we use that, leverage that at scale, not at a team level, because at team level today, I think that problem, there are ways around that. There are ways of addressing that. But what I'm interested in exploring is how we enable that at scale for large organizations in a construct of multiple teams. All right, so today I think we're going to break the conversation in 4 blocks mainly: understanding value streams or services, understand what makes services fit for purpose for the customers, why is it so hard to visualize and use fitness criteria at scale to drive improvements in evolutionary change, and then how value stream management platforms are enabling organizations to ensure their service level falls within acceptable customer thresholds. And then we do a bit of Q&A. So that's kind of like the structure of the conversation today. So feel free during the conversation to put questions on the chat. So I believe that Silke and Pipe will be moderating the questions. I'll try to make breaks in between so that we can pick up some of those, and then we can have like more free form conversation. Is that okay? So let's do it. Let's dive. All right. So let's understand value streams or services. All right. So what is that really? So the concept of value stream is pretty simple. So you connect someone with a need to a product or service provider that can fulfill their need and get that person's need fulfilled. And voila, there you have a value stream, as simple as that, right? It's all about satisfying customer needs, right? So when you look at the value stream, the value part comes from the exchange of economic value for a product or service, right? So usually that's measured by money, but it could be any form of economic value. It could be time, it could be information, your data, it could be influence, and etc., right? And the stream parts come from the continuous flow of request and delivery. So I think that's the most fundamental concept we need to grasp when we are discussing services, when we are discussing value streams. It's all about that. Request and delivery, in and out. That's what this is all about, and balancing demand and capability. So between request and delivery is everything necessary to transform the customer request into value delivered, right? So an example, like a manufacturer, I thought about bringing like example from different industries so that we don't think that this is only a digital or software thing, right? So in manufacturing, a good example of that could be you're going to tesla.com, you're selecting Model X, you're clicking ordering now, and then between you ordering your Tesla and you get it, like there's the assembly line, the Tesla assembly line with all complexities of its supply chain, like in Fremont, California. So when we look like a retail example, that would be Amazon.com, for instance. You go to Amazon, you search for new gadgets for your home office, for instance, you proceed to check out. And then between you making the purchase and then you receiving the goodies, there's like Amazon's warehouse and fulfillment process where they pick, pack, and ship your products with maximum efficiency and etc. And maybe a technology example, which probably will be more relatable to the most of us, would be, let's say, the executive of like a financial institution, for instance, commissioning the IT department to build and ship a new buy now, pay later product to compete with Afterpay. It seems that all financial institutions are doing that nowadays. So between customer order and delivery, there's the whole software life cycle with everything like going all the way up from research and then all the build, measure, learning cycles and etc. Right? So what is important to notice is that regardless the industry, value streams, they have key elements they share. So the first one, obviously, there's a product and service provider or service provider, which is the value stream itself, right? So we have a product or service catalog. The value stream has a product or service catalog, which the customers understand, desire, and can request from. There's the customers and the stakeholders. There's customer orders. There are service level expectation. There's exchange of economic value. There's a delivery process, and there's the delivery itself of the orders. So regardless of the industry, every value stream that you look, you're going to find these common elements, right? So if you look another example, maybe from hospitality, for instance, let's say we are in a cafe. So imagine there's the service provider, in this case, Salty's Cafe. And then there's a product catalog customer understand, is using customer language they can request from, they desire. There's the customer and stakeholders themselves. There's a request. There's exchange of economic value. There's a process, a delivery process or to transform request into value. There's the delivery of the request. And there's like a service level expectation around the delivery as well. So that's a good way of looking the construct of services or value streams. And then value streams can manifest themselves in different ways. So one way of looking at is full customer facing end-to-end value streams, right? So that's usually the value stream, that the level in which you interface with customer, where customers in the very left, they make orders. On the very right, they pick up their orders or they seize the value of the thing they were looking for, right? So end-to-end value streams is one way that value streams manifest itself. The next one are value stream segments. Usually, end-to-end value streams are made out of different value stream segments. And then an organization can have several end-to-end value streams, maybe for different products, maybe for different services, and etc. And then there's the third way, which is the value enabling or supporting value streams. So supporting value streams are usually providing deep expertise to value stream segments. They're not interacting with the end customer, but they are supporting the segments to get their work done. So usually those are shared services like, it could be UI, UX, it could be platform engineering, it could be some operations teams, legal, marketing, comms, or something like that. So they are supporting different parts of the organization to deliver their part of the chain. And then you could have several of those as well. So those are usually like ways where how value streams they manifest. So in Kanban, we say that if you want to scale Kanban, what we do is that we do more of that, right? We do more Kanban. So we see, organizations as a network of service, right? And that's a way you could look this picture as a network of service. We would call in the Kanban land each of those services at different levels, but they would all be services. All right, so that said, now that we understand the construct of a value stream, let's define, let's give it a definition, and then you'd find definitions of value streams like all over the place, and some of those would be putting processes and tools at the center of it, but I thought we would give it a go and put the customer at the center of that. So if you know what is a value stream is, then what is value stream management? So what is the management process is all about? So value stream management is the process of understanding the criteria that make your products or services relevant to your customers, and ensuring your service level continues to fall within acceptable customer thresholds where you are considered to be fit for purpose. I think that's a much better definition that puts customers at the center of that. So putting simply, it's like really, it's managing value streams is all about maintaining fitness, right? So you always try to maintain fitness because your environment is changing. So even though you have fitness today, doesn't mean that you're going to be fit tomorrow because the environment is changing. So it's all about maintaining fitness in the presence of this like a rapidly changing external environment. Cool. So with that said, now that we understand a bit more around like services, value streams, and etc., I wanted to explore more about what makes services fit for purpose for the customer. But before I jump into the next block, just wanted to check on you guys if you have any questions on the chat, or if you need to, anyone want to make any observation before we keep going, or shall we just keep pushing?
Nothing in the chat for now, but if people have questions so far, feel free to shout out.
All right, we're gonna have another opportunity soon, so let's keep pushing in. So let's look at this. So to do this, I want to bring like 4 attributes of value streams, right? And then understand each of those. So the attribute 1 is that a strong value stream must have a clear understanding of who its customers and stakeholders are. So if you don't understand who your customers and stakeholders are, like there's something missing there, right? So usually, as a rule of thumb, the customer is the one who requests and usually receives the value produced, although could not always that's the case, but it's usually more the one who makes the request. And the stakeholders are any interested party, right? It could be someone interested in the production process, either the production process or on the value produced by your value stream or your service, right? So anyone that can either affect or be affected by the value stream. So it's important to visualize that. So in a digital value stream, for instance, customers and stakeholders could be like the customer who represents the market share, for instance, like a customer of a SaaS platform. So like a Flowmatica customer, for instance. So those are the ones who represent your market share at the end of the day, right? So that's one way that customers manifest themselves. The other one, it could be an executive of a functional area within your organization. It could be the VP of marketing, for instance. It could be a value stream segment to which you provide shared services. So you, as a highly specialized service supporting other segments in your value stream, they could be your customer in that case. Or it could be a governance body. It could be like the PMO, like a steering committee, a board, like a regulatory agency or something, right? So customer might manifest themselves like in many different ways. And then you might have like a multiple customers, right? And then when that happens, is that it means that you have multiple sources of demand, right? And then it's likely that those different sources of demand will compete against each other for the capacity of that value stream. So one, you need to understand who your customers are. You need to understand that you have like a multiple source of demand. You need to understand the purpose of each of those customers when they are consuming your product and service. What are the fitness criteria for them and the thresholds so that you can cater for each of those. So that's one bit. This attribute 2 is that a strong value stream has a clear understanding of customer purpose and service level expectations. So depending on the conditions in which customers make a request, their purpose and service level expectations will most likely be different. So as an example, let's take a VP of growth for a SaaS platform, for instance. That person could be one of the demand types they could be requesting would be new product features, for instance. So, and then the purpose there is like to improve the marketability of the product in the long run. And then there is a service level associated with that type of demand. For instance, the VP doesn't expect the product team to act upon all of the requests, but like about 40 to 6% of the requests. So that person would accept that, the time to commit would be acceptable to be between 1 to 3 months. And then from the time of commitment, 3 to 6 months to deliver and to make it available to the market, right? But the same person could have a different type of demand to the product team. Could be like, for instance, running A/B testing. And then the purpose is to be able to run multiple experiments to increase acquisition, activation, retention, revenue, referral, etc. And the service level expectation here would be different. Commitment rate would be much higher, time to commit much lower, and then lead time also much lower, right? So it's important to notice that same customer, different demand types, different purpose, different service level expectations. So service level expectations usually like selection criteria that are commonly used, as we discussed before, usually has to do with like a lead time and the predictability of lead time, quality, the predictability of quality, productivity and the predictability of productivity, cost, safety, regulatory concerns, etc. Some of those concerns, customers will have top of mind. So let's say cost or lead time or quality, customer is actively thinking about that. Some are more unconscious and triggered by exception, usually like safety or regulatory concerns and so on. So it's important to remember, same customer, different purposes, different service level expectations, multiple customers, multiple purposes, multiple service level expectations. And the question is, how do you visualize that today? How do you visualize and manage that today? That's the challenge. That's one of the things that we are trying to address here. All right, attribute 3 of 4. Strong value streams communicate the products and services in a way that's understandable and desirable by customers and stakeholders, right? So delivery teams, usually they communicate in terms of user stories, tasks, bugs, epics, and so on, right? But at a value streams, they must communicate using a ubiquitous customer language, something that the customer would understand, care about, and request. So it's really common for teams to keep using the demand types as the thing that are relevant for them as delivery teams, delivery ecosystems, not using customer language. So for instance, if you're ordering a coffee in Australia, you would probably find like those options on the menu, right? But like an equivalent for that for a software engineering team could be, well, I want a new feature. Like what is the service that you provide? Well, I provide a new features. So with the purpose of change the marketability of the product or enhancements and optimizations, maybe the purpose there is to improve like a customer experience with the focus on retention, fixing defects and incidents, producing enablers and doing tech dash or refactoring that will allow that ecosystem to move faster in the future, risks and compliance, etc. So try always to use customer language when you're communicating at a value stream level, not user stories, not epics that's completely meaningless to your customer. So they don't know and they do not care how you translate their demands into your internal work item types, right? So keep that for your delivery teams. And at a value stream level, it's vital to use customer language. All right, attribute 4 and the last one. So strong value streams understand the fitness level in relation to customer purpose and expectations. So you understand your customer, you understand their motivations, their drivers, their purpose to consume your service. Now you need to understand how you're positioned against that expectation. So there's two things, and it is important to decouple those two things. Service level expectation is what your customer use to evaluate whether your service level is acceptable or if you are fit for purpose. And service level is to which degree you satisfy that expectation. So there are two different things, and you need to understand both. You need to understand what your customer expects for every different purpose, for every different demand, and how fit you are in relation to that expectation. What is your fitness level? So that's a way of looking at, for instance, in that example, features are expected to be completed in 30 days or less. And let's say that ecosystem, that service is meeting that expectation 78% of the time. Defects and incidents, in the other hand, is expected to be completed in 5 days or less. And in that case, they are met 9% of the time. Risk and compliance only 48% of the time for 60 days or less. So that's one of the ways that this can manifest itself. So you understand the types of demand, you're using customer language, you understand what the fitness criteria, in this case, lead time is one of those. You understand what is the threshold, 30 days or less for feature, for instance, and you understand how you are meeting that expectation. 78% of the cases in this example we see. So if you don't understand your service level, you're probably flying blindly today, right? So, and I think one thing that is important to bring and discuss is that if there is a service, there is options, right? And then if there are options, there are choices. I think this is really important to think. So when you think at services, it's really important to understand that customers, they have options, right? And they make choices. So when you are buying, ordering a pizza, you have what do you consider to be good? So maybe you care about the time. I want the pizza here, in 15 minutes because the kids are hungry, they are screaming, I just want to get to my wine. So it might be that delivery time is important to you. Or sometimes you might be receiving friends and you want to have a more gourmet pizza, more sophisticated pizza. So you are willing to pay more, wait longer, and etc. So, and then the thing is that there are choices. So if the service that you're providing is not fit for your customer purpose, they usually will manifest that somehow. Yeah. And the way they usually manifest that is with their 2 feet. They just walk away and choose a different service provider. Most of the times, customers, even an enterprise, internal customers using internal IT departments, they have options, right? When they don't have options, usually that manifests itself in a set of dysfunctional behaviors that usually severely impact culture. So just keep that in mind. When you are not meeting an expectation, you're either gonna lose your customer or you're gonna have an internal problem to deal with in the long run. For the teams themselves, for the customers, and etc., for everyone involved. All right, so that said, we are moving to the block 3 out of 4. But before jumping, I want to again check if you have any questions or any observations, any thoughts anyone want to share.
I just had a chat request for the recording because some person had to head into another meeting. No questions so far. Are there any questions to the audience?
I'm not sure if it's a question or maybe I'm sort of thinking out loud, but for the service agreement, so obviously the customer is very interested to know what that is. Management are interested to set service agreements because it gives them sort of structure and they have confidence they can meet the customer's requirements. But if there's no service agreement and you're flying blind in software development, your developers, that might be a level of comfort for them that they're not locked into something. So how do we get their buy-in, or do we start with them and say, look, what do you think service agreement should be, or do we impose something on them?
Yeah, that's interesting. So if you come back to this picture, the first thing I want to point out, you mentioned like a agreement. So usually we are talking more about service level expectations rather than agreements. Usually agreements, you have like a penalty when you fail to meet that expectation, right? Or not expectation, that agreement. So usually in value streams, most of cases, it might be that some cases we use service level agreements, but most of cases, I guess, we are talking about service level expectations. So by that, what we are saying is like just defining what success look like, right? So in this case, we are saying, hey, ideally, we would deliver features from the point that we commit in 30 days or less, right? So that's an expectation. It's not an agreement. There's no penalty if you fail to deliver on that. But it sets the North Star, right? And that changed the game, almost like as magic, because we know that most of the lead time is made out of delays, right? Waiting time. So if people understand for the first time what is the service level expectation is, if you make that explicit, they actually like it because they know how to compare where they are and how success look like. And then especially because they can use that to inform their decision-making on a daily basis, right? So for instance, if we know that a feature is expected to be completed in 30 days or less, and then we have like one feature in progress, for instance, and that feature is, let's say, 25 days. So we know that, let's say, that's 80% of the service level expectation. So WIP age at that stage is already 80% of the service level expectation. Ideally, we don't want to miss the SLE because we want to be like in a green, like a meeting that expectation, not 100% of the time, but probably like 85% of the time. So teams might make a different decision. So if I just finish a piece of work, should I pick up a new work? Should I start a new work? Or should I help my team or my service or my value stream to get something out of the door in a way that doesn't compromise our service level and our predictability? You know what I mean? So what happens usually pretty quick, like in about 12 weeks, we see like a big transformation on the numbers of teams, is that teams, they become more aware of that. They become more flow aware, they become more lead time aware. And then just because of that, they make better decisions. And then that number, it could be when we first measure, it's 48%, but like in a few weeks, 6 to 12 weeks, that number will quickly jump to 60, 70, 85, 90% eventually, and etc. So usually teams, they see that as a toolbox, as something that will help them as a feedback loop mechanism, rather than pushing back and feeling like, well, this is an agreement, like we are being pressured or something like that. That's what I have seen, like through driving this through teams and team of teams over and over.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. Thanks.
Beautiful.
Maybe a remark from my side as well, if you're allowed to. What you have modeled here is a value stream within an organization. Typically, we have also external service providers, and managing supply chains nowadays is a crucial thing to learn, and having options there is something very valuable. So you have also to monitor your external dependencies and upstream blockers, and so it's a lot more than having the plain vanilla thing going and monitoring that. From my experience.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. Cool. I'll bring that conversation, because I think that's the really core, like that's the main course of this conversation. Why is it so hard? So now that we understand this, why is it so hard to visualize that at scale and use that to drive improvements and evolutionary change in organizations? So, so we said that fitness criteria are what customers use to evaluate whether your service delivery is acceptable, it's fit for purpose. We said that usually the fitness criteria are related to lead time, quality, cost, predictability, and etc. We said that fitness criteria usually they have thresholds, which is like the level in which both your like that represents like a good enough. And we said that usually those criteria, they become KPIs that are used to align expectations with customer and stakeholders. And usually that's what teams use as a North Star for continuous improvement, right? So why you guys think that is so hard to visualize that in enterprise level? Have you had an experience trying to do that? Like, what are your thoughts? Like, why is that so hard?
Well, one thing is missing information about the speed of others and their bottlenecks.
So yeah, information is for sure one of those challenges. What else you guys reckon?
Delays in handover.
Yeah, delays in handover. So one thing that I've noticed about like 6 things over the last like 10 years trying to do this. The first one is that at scale, information is scattered across different tools. So there's no one source of truth, like at scale, right? So when you look at an end-to-end value stream, sometimes the information will be in Jira, sometimes the information will be in Azure DevOps, sometimes in Trello, sometimes in Planview, ServiceNow, Microsoft Planner, you know, depending on the size and complexity of that value stream. So that's one thing that makes it really hard to begin with. The second thing is that at scale, organizations usually have different taxonomy, right? So they call things differently. They give different meaning to different things. So that makes it a bit harder as well. So they have different workflows or ways of working, right? So let's say one team could have like their commitment point in one place, their departure point in another place, but all the teams might understand their commitment point is in a different place, right? So every different local context might understand what in progress means, what like a departure means differently, which makes it really hard to analyze that at scale. Also, it is when we connect all the dots, when we are looking like tools, usually they have the constructs of projects, issue types, workflows, fields, and etc. and etc. So the data model is complex, pretty complex, especially when you look across tools where every different tool behave in a different way, right? And then the manipulation of that data is pretty hard as well. It's not easy. Usually there's a lack of direction and expertise. So one, understand what needs to be done, like how to look at this. And then the second, once we understand what needs to be done, is like the technical skills to actually do that. And lastly, like a lack of common language and shared understanding across different divisions. So I see Eduardo here, for instance, Eduardo Brandão here, for instance. He's from ANZ, and then we were talking with one area at ANZ, the payments area, just one area, they had like 300 squads in one area. So then imagine like different tools, different taxonomy, different workflows, the complexity of the data model, the implementations, and etc. So usually that's where the source of the challenge comes from, like extracting, have meaningful data. On a team level, we see people doing, using out of box, like metrics and analytics, the tools the tool gives you. But as you become like a more experienced practitioner, that you hit the boundaries of that pretty quickly. Oh, you want to look fitness criteria, but Jira doesn't give you fitness criteria. You know what I mean? Some more advanced practitioners, they might be even using more like specialized tools. But when they hit the wall, what they usually do is like, let's go to Excel. They usually export the data, put it in Excel, and then they start playing with it and trying to manipulate data, understand what is the lead time, what is the flow efficiency, what is this, what is that, etc. And then when they hit the wall again, they usually go to like a BI solution, like Power BI, Tableau, or something like that. And then in a point in time, like they might think that's scalable, but they hit the wall trying to build a BI tool at scale to address those concerns. And then what we see over and over again is organizations giving it a go and just abandoning that after many weeks or months of work. So access to the data, which Andreas put as information, is potentially the biggest challenge there, and then followed by lack of expertise, common language, and etc. Does that make sense? Does anyone see anything else that we could add to that list?
Balancing demand is also important, because normally you have several value streams going through one team.
Yes.
And then the team has to set priorities, and that normally leads to clashes. It's rare that it is going smoothly through teams.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you have to compromise somehow, and how to prioritize is really an interesting discussion with the stakeholders. Normally they are not the same stakeholders, so you have to also fight a diplomatic war or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. So Eduardo put on the chart, he said that his mic's not working, but he said at large scale, even to put data together is a challenge, because hierarchical levels of work are not the same. And he's giving an example, what I call a feature, others might call it something else. And that comes with the taxonomy problem and etc. Right? So how value stream management platforms are enabling organizations to change the game, are enabling a new game. So first thing, they are connecting to multiple data sources simultaneously. So we see that's common, that same organization, same value stream, part of that is using one tool set, the other one is using another one. So the information is scattered. So be able to connect to multiple data sources and abstract where the data is coming from is a new enabler, right? The other thing is that these modern VSM platforms, they are performing several abstractions, aggregations, and normalizations to address the different setups, taxonomies, and workflows that we said. And then they are translating local and contextual data from teams into global and meaningful insights for leaders. So what we see today, how that happens today, there's two ways of doing that. one way is that you standardize everyone. You make everyone work at the same way with the same workflows, with the same taxonomy, so that you can create report and information for governance. That's one way. Usually that doesn't work, especially at scale. The second way is translating the information that you have in local teams into global insights, but then that is done by people, people translating that. So you have an army of project managers, program managers, service delivery managers, Scrum Master, delivery leads, etc., doing this. And then that's a very expensive and non-effective way of doing, but it's the way that industry has been doing that for a long, long time. The other thing is that those value streams are enabling contextual analysis. So now that I can pull all this data in a plug and play way, and then we can create normalizations and aggregations. So they allow us to look at different specific contexts more precisely to extract the insights and look for the insights we are looking for. They are providing real time. So this is real time. There's no delay between you needing the information, gathering the information, translating the information, and presenting. So the information is always there, real time, live, already translated by the platform. And they are providing actionable insights. Those platforms, they are really exploring different types of analysis. The descriptive analysis is when the platform is telling you, hey, this is what is happening. Potentially your lead time is expanded. You have a low predictability. You have the diagnostic analysis. The platform will tell you why is that happening? Potentially you have too much WIP. Your WIP is out of control. You have too much expedites. Your pull transaction policies might be weak here or something like that. Prescriptive analysis, what you could do to change that. And then predictive analysis, which is what is likely to happen in the near future. So it's a bit of ability to do forecasting, what if scenarios, and etc. So these 6 things together are enabling a whole new game at a scale for enterprise to understand their fitness level, be able to visualize, measure, and use that to drive continuous improvement. And then with that said, I wanted to explore some of those fitness criteria and lead indicators, but I'm happy, and that's the last part of the conversation today, before we go to Q&A, but I'm happy to get some thoughts from the crowd on those points. It's also an excuse to drink some water. Cool. So let's
there is a Eduardo has come through in the chat. Step 3. Can translation also be compromised by bias from the translators who are manipulating the data?
Yes, eventually that could be, but the rules of that translation will be built in the engine of the platform and will be applied across the board. So if there's a flaw on the translation, that will be applied across the board. So one example of that would be, for instance, let's say teams might call for bugs. Some teams might call bugs. Some teams might call we have seen bugs, story bugs, defects, incidents. So different teams using different taxonomy to refer to a failure demand, right? So what these platforms are doing is that they are saying, hey, anytime you have these or that, call these defects and incidents, for instance. So they are normalizing different taxonomies in one, using customer language, for instance, in that example. So the rules will be built into the platform across the board. But yeah, there's always potential for that, Eduardo. And it would be good, like maybe on the Q&A if you want to explore that further. All right, so let's have a look at some of those fitness criteria and leading indicators. So the first one, remember, value to customer trumps flow, which trumps waste and elimination, right? So it's good to start looking. It's good to start looking from a value perspective. And I just noticed that the print screen that is here is the wrong one. Apologies for that. But here, what we want to look is like, what is the ratio of value demand, failure demand, and non-value demand, right? So how much of everything we produce is actually delivering value to customers and stakeholders? How much of that represents failure demand, things that we fail to do or we fail to do right in the first time? How much of what we do represents like secondary needs or things that we need to do in order to do business, right? So again, when you go to a scale, like let's use Eduardo's example, like a 300 squads in one area. So what, from everything, from the hundreds of different issue types they have in their JIRA, for instance, which of those represent value demand? Which of those represent failure demand or non-value demand, which are secondary needs? So getting that aggregated at the scale of 300 squads is really game changing, but it's really hard to do that manually. But for the first time, we are able to do that at scale. And then we can understand what's happening now, but also across time, what has been happening. So the other thing that is important that usually is part of a fitness criteria is productivity, right? So be able to understand productivity across time, our ability to understand how productive we are we? Like how was the productivity of the last period? How much productivity we have gained over the last 6 months? And especially adding semantical analysis to that. So you understand, like based on the median throughput, you understand where you are like slightly under, where you're like slightly up, or where you have like a really outperformed like in one of those periods. So that's really important. But again, how do you look at scale? Because what departure means for different teams in different tools, in different workflows might be completely different. But this is putting it all together at a value stream level. So the next one is that, all right, so if you understand how much we are producing, now let's look at the demand distribution. So we are not looking here at issue types, because if we were looking at issue types here, potentially would have like hundreds of different items here. But here again, we are looking at customer language, what customer understand. So customer understand, is there a new value creation? Is that a new feature? Is that like a value protection? Is that an enhancement? Is that like a risk and compliance concern? What it is? So imagine again, aggregating like hundreds of different issue types into something that we can look across the board, how our capability has been deployed. And this is one of the biggest challenges that organizations are facing when they are pivoting from a project construct, a project paradigm, to a product paradigm, when they have long-lived teams, where the funding has been changing from funding projects, which has the iron triangle, like a fixed cost, fixed scope, fixed time, to being only fixed cost and open scope, open time, right? So now they are funding capacity, but they lost a bit of control of like, where is my capacity going? You know what I mean? So here at scale, we can look, hey, it might be that we have been over-focusing on shipping new features, and we have been neglecting like a refactoring or risk and compliance concerns or something like that. And this might come and bite us down the track. Or it could be the other way around. We are over-engineering, golden plating things and not shipping customer features and etc. So as you understand that at scale, how your capacity has been deployed, one, that you have visibility. Two, now that you understand, you can like put intention into that. You can put intentionality on that. So depending on maybe the stage of the life cycle of different products or different value streams, they might set different targets. You know, like let's say, let's focus on, 6% of our capacity. Let's focus on this type of demand, 40% on that type of demand, or something like that. Obviously, that is not what will happen like exactly. But if you know what is the intent, and we have a feedback loop to understand what is actually happening, we might use that to balance our decisions. So sometimes I might be under what is expected. So next time I pick up a work, I'll try to focus on that type of work that I'm under, or I might be over. And next time I'll try not to pick that type of demand and pick something else that's under. So understanding this will be really important and game changing for delivery governance. All right, so the other thing is the ability to understand lead time, service level, and predictability levels for different types of demand. So again, here we are using customer language. As we saw, we can see like how many items of that specific type of demand was completed. We can see the explicit service level expectation for each of those. We can see the target met, like how much the value stream is meeting customer expectation for each different type of demand, the trend. And we can see the predictability. Is that the predictability of the lead time high or low? Sometimes customers will value predictability more than lead time itself. So these two things have value. Time to market has value, predictability has value. And then eventually predictability will have more value than lead time. So predictability is a ratio. So there are many ways of understanding that. There are many mathematical models to understand that. And we've tried it all. And then what we learned is that it doesn't resonate with customer, with leaders. And then we need to try to dumb it down until it becomes useful. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, we end up translating predictability into things. Either it's high or it's low. And for that, we look at the ratio between tail and median to determine if the predictability is high or low. So again, here, imagine the data coming from here might be coming from a bunch like different tools using different taxonomies, different workflows with different arrival, commitment, and departure points. And yet at scale, we can put it all together in a view like that enables the value stream understand where they are in relation to customer expectation. The other thing that is usually part of that is flow efficiency, which is the ratio between value adding time and waiting time. And in here, we can understand like what is the current flow efficiency, what is the flow efficiency over time. And then you can understand like ranges of flow efficiency. This is something that's a heuristics that I've been using for a while, trying to put that together. Because when you look like, well, my flow efficiency is 8.6%, what does that mean, right? So ranges of flow efficiency between 0 and 15%. Usually that's the most common brackets that you're gonna find out there. And usually it will it means that we'll about 85% of the lead time will be made out of delays. And of course, there will be several dysfunctions that will come with that. 16 to 40%, usually when we go to that range, teams usually they became flow aware, right? So usually they have something. Now I know what is the expectation. We are trying to meet that expectation, the lead time service level expectation. We know that most of the lead time is made out of delay. We know that the delays is like come from the decisions that we take like every day when we are doing our work. So they become more aware, and they start doing better this micro decisions every day, and those decisions start compounding. So they go up to a 40% range of flow efficiency. 41 to 60, at this level, value streams are ultra aware of flow, and they are actively engaged in reducing lead time and increasing predictability levels, right? So here, really, when you get the high-performing teams, usually have the support of a coach or a really good service delivery manager, and they are really focusing on optimizing that value stream. 61 to 80%, like we rarely observe that level of flow efficiency, but it could be possible depending on the type of service. And when you go to 81 to 100%, like that's usually not commonly attainable for knowledge work. And when you see that, that's usually worse than being on the first region, 0 to 15, because when flow efficiency shows up on the range of 80 to 100%, it means that most of the cues are hidden, right? So the cues are hidden, not explicit, and you don't know when the work is actually receiving attention value or not. Another thing that is important that at scale you are able to do, as we said, value streams are all about like request and delivery in and out, is to be able to understand the difference between capacity and demand and inflow and outflow. So capacity and demand will be like the ratio between orders and delivery, like arrival point to your departure point. And then when your demand exceeds your capacity, what happens is that your inventory grows. And then you're going to have one set of challenges when you have like a big backlog, a big inventory, a big pool of options. When, in the other hand, like the difference between in and outflow is more in relation to commitment and departure points, right? So when your inflow exceeds your outflow, what happens is that you start accumulating WIP. Your WIP is growing. And when your WIP grows, too much, you're going to start having another set of problems. So be able to understand these two things across the board at scale, with information coming from different tools, with different taxonomies, workflows, ways of working, arrival, commitment, departure points. That's the challenge that that's preventing organizations to leverage fitness level at scale. Other things that once you have that you can leverage is understanding for every time of demand, like what is the queue? How much demand is waiting to get into my system? And what is the commitment rate? Like maybe we commit to 7 out of 10 demands usually. So if you request, let's say a feature, there's 71% in that case of chance that the value stream will actually act upon your request, and it might take up to 23 days to start. The time to commit might be up to 23 days. So this is another thing that is enabled. The other thing is understanding class of service as well. So we need to understand what is the set of policies that every piece of work enters in our system, how that work is expected to behave in the system. And then if you can see class of service over time across different tools, ways of working, workflows, taxonomies, and etc., then you gain so much insights. It might be that your system is operating in a state of urgency nothing is delivered and everything gets expedited, and then people start only acting on the expedited, and then like you start degrading the whole system, you know. But you kind of visualize that that's invisible, right? But if you can have a visual representation of that, then that can allow the right conversations to take place. Also, yes.
Barbara is asking, are we talking about a particular tool or product here? Barbara, do you mean the classes of service?
Hi, sorry. I mean like this particular tools he's talking about to get these graphs and info.
So the focus of the conversation today is more about the concepts and the information that we should be able to extract, and less about the tool. But like the charts are coming from Flowmatica, which is the platform that myself and Tom work on. It's called Flowmatica. So those charts are coming from Flowmatica. But you should be able to, at a team level, be able to get the same information. But what we are trying to discuss here is how can we do at scale, like an enterprise level, what eventually teams can do in a local context. Does that make sense to you, Barbara?
Yep. Yeah, it's just that you were first talking about, I guess, Excel and stuff, and then we're talking about these different,
So usually,
wondering.
Yeah, so usually we see all the time teams trying to just use the out-of-box charts, and then they like hit the wall. They export the data, play in Excel, try to manipulate the data in a different way, and then they go into eventually like a Power BI tool or Tableau or something, and they eventually hit the wall trying to scale that. So I think value stream management platforms are kind of the next level that will allow that to happen at scale via like a plug and play, a much more simpler way, giving much more powerful insights, if that makes sense. So we see teams like operating all that, like different teams will be sometimes just using what Jira gives you out of box, sometimes playing with like reporting using Excel and things, sometimes with Power BI, etc.
Yeah. By the way, Dan has arrived. Welcome, Dan. He is the facilitator of the Australian meetup groups. I had set an expectation of you arriving at the last responsible moment, but I think in this case, I did not meet the audience expectation.
Yeah, no, apologies. I had a client commitment I just couldn't get out of today. But no, it's great to have Marcio here. I'm really happy that he's talking about this stuff. And it really, obviously, I can see some influence from old mate Troy McGuinness here. And I like some of these charts and things that you're talking about, because it's things that have come up in our Kanban meetups over and over again over the years, and seeing them all brought together in a fit for purpose context is really awesome.
Fantastic.
Well, we are 11 past the hour now. Yeah,
I'll close. I think that's the last thing that I want to bring is like, and it brings us back to that question, like how teams use that. So if you understand service level expectation at scale, and then you know what is the WIP age, the age of your work, now you can use that as a feedback loop to make better decisions on a daily basis. So I think I'll close here. We go to the Q&A. I think the purpose of the talk was to provoke us to think, how can we automate fit for purpose analysis? And then we discussed about customers, about purpose and service level expectations, fitness level, fitness criteria, how that can be measured, and then how that can be used to drive improvement, long-lasting improvement. And with that, we can explore maybe the rest of the time with Q&A, bouncing ideas. And I hope that it was useful and got you like some food for thought.
I was on mute. Are there any more questions? Feel free to either pop them in the chat or just unmute and ask them directly. There is Jay. Hi, Marcio. For those of us that are automation aficionados, obsessives, could you provide one of your most notable example of automation benefiting a client? Perhaps measurements in person, hours spent being reduced.
Yeah, I can give you some examples, but maybe it won't be in person's hours like spent, the reduce of that would be more around, again, coming back to the fitness criteria, right? To the fitness level. So what is important to the customer? So we see over and over in a time range of 6 to 12 weeks already, like we see meaningful changes. In 12 to 24 weeks, we see value streams or services reducing their lead time to 70 up to 80%, tripling the delivery of value demand, like increasing like 50, 60 percentage points in predictability, completely flipping the ratio of value demand and failure demand. So the results are really tangible as soon as teams become flow aware, as soon as they start pursuing efficiency, but not resource efficiency, when they start pursuing flow efficiency, pursuing efficiency through flow. Like results is almost like a cake recipe, like in 12 to 24 weeks, like it drastically changes. And then what is good about being data-driven and having something that provides you actionable insights is that all those insights are things that you can do next Monday. You know what I mean? It's not something that will require you to do like a big major transformation in order to achieve those outcomes. So we're going to say, well, my predictability is low, my lead time is extended. Well, that's a problem that doesn't match customer expectation. We don't see to be fit for purpose. All right. So if that's the problem, what could be the cause of that problem? Well, lead time is expanded, and maybe because we have too much WIP, maybe because we have like bursts of failure demand coming, maybe and we get expedites all the time, which bumps like standard work. Maybe we don't have like a clear explicit policy to deal with expedites. Maybe we need a better pull transaction policy. So instead of pulling cards in a random order, maybe we need to pull in a first in, first out kind of fashion. So platforms like these will tell you what is happening, why that's likely to be happening, always looking just the data. And it will tell you, hey, for you to maybe change this, try to do these 3 things, implement WIP limit in the column X to 12, for instance. Because if this is all about matching in and out, we know what's the out, we know what's the departure rate. Try to match your inflow to your outflow. Try to have a more strict expedite policy. Try not to start any new work until your WIP levels gets to that point. So the platform is giving you like a pretty actionable insights that you can do tomorrow, you can do next Monday in your team. You don't need to, do anything, else. So this is really changing the game for teams. Not like using a platform like this, but the fact that you became flow aware, and that's the principle here. That's what we are talking about. Is about you understanding your customer, the purpose, the service level expectation, and your fitness level. That's what matters. If you understand that, however you do to understand that, that's what matters here. And if you can automate that so that you can leverage that on a daily basis, that's the best.
Can I also just mention something on that as well, Marcio?
Yes, please.
With automation is a solution to a particular problem. So, you want to automate that where, you've got a lot of, you're using valuable human time to do stuff that's more robotic or could be robotic. And the payoff that you're going to get, you've got to understand what the payoff is going to be in terms of the overall flow that Marcio was talking about before you go straight down the automation path. So, for example, I might turn a day of manual work into like a push button, and that's great. That's an improvement, but maybe the effort that I spent on that improvement would be better spent dealing with the blocker upstream. That's, maybe something sitting for approval with someone for 6 weeks, and it's not doing anything. I'll get better bang for my buck in terms of my lead time solving that blocker upstream than spending that time turning that one day into an instantaneous sort of thing. So automation is great, but it's a solution to a particular problem. And I think what Marcio is showing here is to become more fit for purpose. You need to use the right tool for the job and go where the deepest problem is.
Perhaps I can add maybe just a particular example for Jay there. I think that's what I was looking for is, for example, one example we've seen is like a team kind of looks at their lead time and says, okay, how do we reduce our lead time? So they can do analysis, see, well, what's our longest queue there? And it might be, let's say, ready for release. Spending 20% of your time waiting ready for release. Or why is that? Because it goes to queue for the release team to release. Or what if we kind of automate that? We could potentially save 20% of our lead time. So that's probably one example I can kind of share with Jay.
Yeah, and also like ready for peer review or ready for test. Like most of the queues, if you understand which are your key source of delay, then you can like start asking how might we questions. And then if like the value stream of the service comes together in a service delivery review, for instance, or in an operations review in a much larger scale, they can start asking how much we questions, how much we reduce or eliminate that ready for peer review, waiting for peer review, waiting for code review step. And then if you do that, well, we reduce maybe 32% of the lead time. And then if you tackle maybe the 3 key source of delay, we reduce 6% of the lead time just in 3 queues. So how can we do? And you know what I mean? But for that, you need to have that information, and then explicit, a data, and then to drive the conversation, to work as an improvement driver.
The flip side of it as well is that once you've made that change and that improvement, you also have the data there to measure, was it successful or not? And do I need to go back and do something else?
Exactly. Yeah, it becomes a feedback loop too for them to, are we doing better now? Yeah.
Good question though. Other questions? Sorry, Silke, you might be on mute.
I just said Jay's happy with the answer. Yeah, are there any more questions?
So I have a question. So does anyone in the group here, is today actively visualizing fitness criteria, understand have somewhere, it could be on the board, it could be on a physical board, it could be on Excel, it could be whatever, doesn't matter where, but is anyone here have a clear understanding, what are the fitness criteria, what are the thresholds, and where we are in relation to that today? Does anyone have any other experience to share? I think that's a sign of how hard it is, this is really hard to do. And then we before you were here, then like we were discussing coming back to the static, because that's the first step of the static. Understand what makes service like a fit for customer purpose, and then usually that step is skipped because like people don't have enough information or relevant information to do that properly. So this conversation is about bringing that back. And then the importance of really understanding that and discussing, even though you might be collecting information manually today or something, and then you can build upon that and improve, but give it a go, try to visualize who my customers are, which are the type of demands that I'm serving my customer. Like, what is the customer language for that? Not my issue type, not my epic feature task. What is the customer language for every type of demand? What is the service level expectation for each of those? What are the fitness criteria? What does my customer care about? Is more about the time that I turn this around? Is the predictability? Is the cost? What is the thing that my customer cares more about? And then for each of those, what are the thresholds for each of those, right? And once you understand that, where are we in relation to that expectation? Just try to do that exercise. It could be in a piece of paper, but try to do that exercise and build on top of that as you go.
Yeah, I've done that 4 times so far this week. And sometimes one of the most interesting things is you ask people, who are your customers and what do they ask for and what are their expectations? And sometimes people are a little bit unsure about that. So just, going through that process can be a great clarifying thing for an organization and a team.
Yeah. For sure. Beautiful. I think we are heading to the end of the meetup, heading to the end of the year. It was a great year. You guys have done an amazing job with, really bringing the community together, bringing people from all over the world to share knowledge with this crowd. That's fantastic. Well done, you two. And then I heard that we are kicking off next year with the right foot. Is that right?
Silke, do you want to take all that credit?
I actually just enjoyed that someone else is closing our year other than us. I found that brilliant. Thanks, Marcio. Yeah. So coming to an end of our Kanban year 2021, we had some really great speakers here. Some from Kanban University themselves and people who've been in the Kanban world for a long time and really understand what they're talking about. The community has actually grown quite a bit. Maybe we can grow it next year. I would like to hit the 1,000, but I think it might be a bit ambitious, but who knows? Like at least in my New Zealand meetup. I'm not sure you're going in Australia.
Yeah, over 1,000, yeah.
You have them.
I need more and more attendance. I think you got people that are there for years.
Yeah. I mean, in New Zealand, we literally started 2 years ago. So yeah. And so, next in February, we will have Mary and Tom Poppendiek here, and that will be quite a cool thing. They have been really legends in the more lean thinking space. And I think they might have been in this space when probably most of us were still at school or something like that. So yeah. they really have seen a lot in this world, and they have something to say. Yeah. Dan, would you like to say some words?
Yeah, just first of all, thanks to Marcio for coming along and showing us this stuff, because I think you're right. This is something that the Australian New Zealand market can really aspire towards, this fit for purpose stuff. So yeah, thank you for coming along and doing that talk. But also, yeah, closing up, thanks for everyone for coming to our Kanban meetups this year. I think we have had a great variety of speakers, and next year hopefully it's going to be bigger and better. And there's a lot happening in the Kanban community. There's I'm publishing more blog pages, more videos and articles and presentations and all sorts of things that are going to go on, you know, throughout next year. So there's plenty of new information and news and things going on. So do get onto, you know, the websites and other things that, you know, and learn more about Kanban, because it's, you know, as Marcio said, this is stuff that you can take away and do at work next Monday. It's really practical and applicable. And we just want to, you know, help everyone get the most out of Kanban and help it improve their lives.
When you Google Kanban New Zealand YouTube channel, you will actually see most of the recordings we've had so far in the last 2 years. And yeah, what I also really enjoy is actually connecting people that are interested in this topic. So I think lots of you guys have connected in the meantime, and so you can ask questions to each other. Cool. But let's not make this any longer. I hate saying goodbye. I really don't like it, but I think we have to do it now. And just wishing everybody a really good summer break. Re-energize in your families. Safe. Yeah, get out, enjoy the sun. No virtual time. And I will see you, or we will see you all back next year in February. And those that are in Dunedin, I will see maybe in January. Cool, cool. Thank you. I will stop the recording now.